Hey everyone, it's Kenjay and welcome back to my channel. I have a special guest with me today. It's my good friend Marcus Mills. Say hello, Marcus.
Hi, how are you?
So today's a special video because we're going to be talking about everything voting. And my friend here is very politically knowledgeable about everything. So we're gonna ask him a couple of questions and get his insight on why we should be voting, especially since it's around the corner. So Marcus, how did you really get yourself into following politics?
So actually story, I was probably 13 or 14 and it was right around the election of 2000. And me and a couple of other 8th graders, we considered ourselves like the hardcore Democrats. Like that was what, no, literally it was
Really?
me and two other girls.
I can totally see it.
And we were the hardcore Democrats. And so, you know, Al Gore was running, it was the election of 2000 and that was just a thing that we were kind of going after.
I remember that.
Yeah, so... And that's kind of where it started. Maybe it started a little bit before that, but that's kind of where I just started to really take an active personal role in politics, as opposed to, well, you know, parents believe this, so, or, you know, community believes this, so I believe this, yeah.
So you just basically, you found the interest through just watching the news and seeing what's happening.
Yeah, literally watching the news, reading newspapers, and really just kind of keeping an eye on what was going on. Mm-hmm. So that election, obviously Ralph Nader was running then, and so there was a lot of talk, and obviously Al Gore was running as well, but there was a lot of talk about environmentalism, there was a lot of talk about kind of, you know, just conservatism versus not. 9/11 hadn't happened yet, and so we were coming out of the Clinton years and the stain of kind of the Clinton name and you know, the impeachment process and kind of that whole bit. And so even though I was reading this going, these policies make more sense for the country, you could feel the country was shifting in. Not really shifting, it was really 50-50, but people were like, I don't know, I could have a beer with George Bush. Mm-hmm. So that's just kind of how it happened, literally reading newspapers and watching the news. So
so I want you guys to know, like, I don't really follow politics as much as I should, and so I'm so glad to have him as a friend because he talks a lot of politics, especially on Facebook. So you should probably find him on Facebook, Marcus Mills. I'll link it down here.
Yeah, I can tell you this. If I don't know you, I'm not going to add you. So,
well,
but
I mean,
you know,
you can follow, but you can't.
Right, true.
Right.
Well,
but
go ahead, do your thing.
no, it's okay. But for someone who's finally starting to take an interest into politics, I guess what would be your advice for someone who is new and trying to get themselves to understand what's going on in our society and learn a little bit more of, you know, different interests?
Well, I think it's important to, like, this idea of being into politics, like, what does that mean, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously we are queer people, we are people of color. We don't have the luxury of being into politics because politics is essentially decisions that are made about our lives and livelihood, whether or not we are involved in that discussion, right? Okay. And so if you look at politics as just being involved in the discussions that affect you and affect your neighbors and affect your family and affect your friends, then you're not into politics at all. You're just interested in making sure that you're right, that helping people and bettering your life, bettering the lives of everyone else. Okay. And so I think that that's step one in terms of getting more involved in quote-unquote politics. There are issues that we care about, and even if you're someone who you don't think politics necessarily applies to you, or there's not really anything that I care about. If seeing migrant children ripped out of the arms of their mothers and then interned in concentration camps on U.S. soil makes you uncomfortable, maybe that's something that you might want to have a voice in and say, you know what, I want to help people to talk about that. If seeing trans rights stripped away from trans people bothers you, maybe that's something that you want to speak up about. Or if it's something that you're like, well, I don't know about a specific issue, I don't know enough about climate change. Climate change is the single largest issue of our time, and nobody talks about it, but it's the single most important issue that we can talk about. But a lot of people they don't understand what climate change is. I mean, if that's the case, hey, let me just read an article from here from there, and kind of find out more about it, and then figure out who's talking about the things that I think are going to help us. What does the research say, and what leaders are then trying to help move us forward in that direction.
Basically, look at the things that you're most interested in, and also looking at your values and what you care about can be a start to your politics, right?
Right.
Okay. Awesome. So, segueing into that, because I know where you're going with that, where can people find credible sites where it's a non-bias, where they can actually find facts versus an opinion or, whatever?
Okay. So, can I find a fact as opposed to infotainment? Yes, you can. So that brings up another thing. It's okay, well, you don't want to just tell people, hey, go to the internet and find information, because they'll be pulling up all types of we will seek out the information that confirms what we already believe, as opposed to seeking out information that is kind of impartial and is from a source that is impartial. So sources like the New York Times, the Washington Post, I mean, these are time-tested media sources that if you read something in the Times or in the Post, it's been vetted, that there have been people who have fact-checked this a million times before it goes out. That there are a board of people who are this is okay to go out, and so you can trust where it's coming from. Associated Press. So Reuters and the Associated Press, they are news sources that feed into other outlets. So, an AP story or a Reuters story, they will give the story to USA Today or, the Washington Post or whatever outlet, but they will vet the story as well. So if you see a story that says AP or Associated Press or Reuters, you can usually trust the source of that. Other different news sources that I like to get my news from, smaller kind of independent or formerly known as independent news sources. Raw Story or when Gawker was a thing, Gawker usually the fact check their stuff. The Huffington Post is another one that if the stories on the Huff Post is probably true. But these are our news sources where you have to be careful about the headline, because the news is not in the headline. The news is in the article that you have to read, and so sometimes being aware of the source that it's coming from. Okay, this is on the Huffington Post, and this headline is clickbait. So great, let me this is a sensationalized headline to get me to click something, formerly to buy a paper. And so let me read this and then parse that out. Shows or channels. MSNBC is probably high up there. CNN, while they are leaning a little more infotainment these days, they're pretty high up there. Going back to MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, I mean, she's as an investigative journalist.
Oh my gosh.
She delivers news. She's not screwing around. She's here to deliver news, and she's a freaking Rhodes Scholar. So this is somebody who really digs in and can give you the meat of something, even if it's a little boring sometimes. I would stay away at all costs from Fox News,
of course.
or Fox News outlets And I know that people, even me referencing the New York Times and the Washington Post, the first thing I hear in my head is Donald Trump saying the lying New York Times, and I'm like, Fox News is a lie. We have information that show that Fox News viewers are the most uninformed. You are better off watching no news than you are more informed watching no news than watching Fox News.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's Fox News. I would definitely stay away from that. And I feel kind of like if you're watching this video, you're probably like, okay, great. I probably know to stay away from Fox News, but Fox News is really just confirmation bias which is essentially confirming what your audience already knows or already believes to be true. Just not necessarily giving them facts, just saying, yeah, that weird feeling that you have about those, brown people who are out there. Yeah, they're we're going to confirm it. We're going to, feed into that. And so rather than giving people information and allowing people to make an informed decision once they've given them the information, Fox News just says, we already know kind of what you're thinking and what you're scared of and what you like and you don't like, and we're going to feed into
basically
that confirmation.
They're playing into their fears, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, whereas the New York Times will tell you, hey, you may not like this, but climate change is not only real but threatening the planet in the next now, and we already passed the point of no return 10 years ago, whereas Fox News will go, well, I know that you really think that the earth is only 6,000 years old, or you only really think that climate change isn't really a thing and it's a hoax by the Chinese or whatever, so we're going to give you more of that, because we know that if we give you more of that, you're going to tune in to boost numbers, and if you're tuning in, that means that advertisers are paying us the money. Right.
So with the recent debate with Andrew Gillum and Ron DeSantis.
Oh wait. I said Andrew Gillum. I was like, yeah. And you were like Ron DeSantis. I was like, oh, hold on.
I know.
Thumbs down. Thumbs down.
No. Okay. So we're gonna segue into the midterm election that's happening on November 6th, and I never voted in the midterm election before in my life, so I want to know why this midterm election is important, or why to vote in a midterm election.
Well, you are a baby, and so I don't even know whether you're old enough to vote yet. So whatever. But voting in this midterm election is important, obviously. So we have the election of 2016, right? Donald Trump rolls into office with the support of 30% of the population, right? The voting age population, because another 35% or so voted for Hillary Clinton, or we'll call it I'm giving rough numbers, but 30% of the population voted for Donald Trump, another 32% voted for Hillary Clinton, and another 30, 35, whatever percent just stayed at home. They didn't vote. And so Donald Trump rolls in. He starts trying to undo everything that Barack Obama has done positively within the last 8 years, even to a point where espousing the same policy, just putting erasing Obama's and putting Trump's name on it. Same policy, same outlook, but just trying to undo everything Obama in some cases, and in many cases. Rolling back, pulling us out of things like the Paris Climate Accords, dangerous rhetoric that has shown an increase in right-wing extremist, white supremacist violence. Things that you see, and we saw that even before the election. At rallies and things like that, where there's a lot of violence at these rallies. And so now we have an opportunity. Obviously, Hillary Clinton lost, right? That was the horse that the Democratic Party decided to run with in 2016, and it didn't quite work out in the way that we thought it was going to. What has happened in the years since then is that there's been a groundswell of progressive kind of action, where people are like, no, we're not going to, we don't want just Obamacare back. We want single-payer healthcare system. We're going to fight for a progressive, universal healthcare system that covers all of us. No, it's not enough to just give us the $10 an hour that we had back. We want a $15 per hour federal minimum wage, and we want that tied to a living wage index, so that we don't have stagnant wages for the next whatever. It's not enough to just put us back in the Paris Climate Accords. We have to take massive, immediate action on a national and global level in order to attack the problem of climate change. And so you're seeing people, the loss of 2016 and the subsequent 2 years have now energized people to a point where it's like, no, we have the stakes are real, the lives are real, we are seeing, and we're seeing that in, synagogues being, shot up, or people who are former presidents being mailed bombs, or, just people walking into supermarkets and executing people, murdering people in supermarkets. We see that at Parkland with, people, the gun control is a huge deal. Like, it's one more situation where people are like,
People are starting to be fed up because they're like, no, like things need to really change.
Right, things have to change, and it's like, so what do we want? Like we have this. The Second Amendment says that we can, have the right to bear and keep arms, and the right to a well-regulated militia, and then we have the lives of children, right? Yeah. And so it's like the balance of democracy and liberty is what are we willing to maybe give up so that the quality of life can go up. And so I think that you're just seeing people energized and in a way that they hadn't been before, and that I don't think they would have been had Hillary Clinton won the election.
I'm actually really excited for this election because I like that people are being more involved and getting more educated in not only their communities, but like on a national level of what's really going on. So I'm like really excited to see what happens. I'm really pushing for, the Democratic side, obviously, but I'm like really excited to see what the turnout's gonna be once it's all over. Where can people find where to register to vote? I know it's too late to register to vote, it's what, 4 days till we are able to go to the polls and vote, but for the next one that's coming up, that's the presidential election, where can people find that they can go and register to vote, and where can we find the voting polls?
Okay, so this is, I pause here because it kind of depends on how, I want to give an answer that's a little nuanced. It's not just like, go out and register to vote. So if you are a person who knows that you want to be associated with the Democratic Party, right? You want to be able to vote in the primaries to see, hey, I want to support this person who's coming up in the Democratic primary because I tend to lean in a more democratic way. My suggestion would be to go out, register to vote as a Democrat. You can register. There are a million sites. I'll give you one of them.
Okay.
So it depends on kind of where you are, but your local election board, if you're over the age of 18, you can register to vote. If you're a U.S. citizen and over the age of 18, you are able to vote. And so, go and do that. And my suggestion would be to early on decide, hey, I want to be either registered with the Democrats, or I want to be registered or Republican if you're there, if that's you. So if you are registered with the party, you can vote in the party's primary, right?
Okay.
And so essentially, to take it back to a 2016 analogy or example, if you wanted to decide between Bernie or Hillary, you had to be registered as a Democrat in order to do that.
Got it.
So what a lot of millennials, so we're millennials, right? Millennials are not like 12-year-olds. Millennials are people between like the ages of like, early 20s to like early to mid 30s, right? At this point. And so a lot of millennials were not registered. The predominant party affiliation that we have is no party affiliation.
Oh, wow. And
so we are not able to necessarily participate in primaries, even though we may want to support a candidate that is in the primary. What's happening is that they're called closed primaries. And so, and a lot of people don't realize that. So, yet again, I'll give you the link to sign up to vote. But like I said, strongly think about whether you want to associate with one of the two major parties, because if later on you want to vote in those primaries, that is going to be important. But then let's say that you register late outside of the primaries, you can register no party affiliation, MPA, if you want, and you'll still be able to vote in the general election aside from that. So
I dig it. All right, you guys, that is all you need to know about voting for now. I just want to thank my friend Marcus for coming out. I don't know if you have any last words that you want to say to my my viewers.
I just wanted to say thank you, Kenny, for having me. I had a really good time just having a conversation. I think it's really awesome that you value your audience so much that you really want to make sure that they are politically involved, and having a voice in what's happening to them. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Kenny, for having me.
All right, everyone, if you like this video, go ahead and hit like. Also, subscribe if you have not already. And also, don't forget to vote November 6th. I'll say
Today,
November
right?
2nd.
November 2nd.
No, November 6th. So make sure to do that, you guys. Have a good one. Bye.